invite you also in this session to make use of the chat function, which I think you're by now very much familiar with. You can find the chat icon on top of the screen, off the Microsoft Teams screen, and we really encourage you to use it. Put in the chats all the thoughts that come to your mind while you're listening to the presentations. Also in light of maybe some clarification questions, but also more deeper going questions, because this is your chance to find out more, especially from our 3 speakers today. If we move to the next slide, you'll see my name popping up again. I think some of you have seen me already today. My name is Katharina Faradsch. I'm moderating the session, as I've done this morning for a couple of others. And we want to really look at some examples and recommendations for you as potential fund seekers. We do that in a format of 3 presentations, which you see on the next slide. We will start with Anja de Cunto, who is working as funding and financing coordinator for the Government of Mayors. Anja will give us a presentation, and she very much invites questions to that, so please don't disappoint her on that. Then, as a second presentation, we have Carlotta Fioretti, who works for the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And thirdly, and lastly, is Joost Declerck, who is an energy efficiency promoter at the Belfius Bank. So yet another perspective, and he will tell us more about Elena and the experience of that in Belgium. So please, again, I want to encourage you, use the chat function, use your opportunity to ask questions. And I don't want to spend much more time on the introductions, but I want to give the floor right away to Anja. Anja, if you could turn on your camera, and if you could get control of over the presentation. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm very sorry. I'm going a bit fast. I'm really sorry. Actually, we have a few questions to you first. My sincere apologies. I missed that bit. We have a few questions for you, 2 to be more precise, because for our 3 speakers, it was very interesting to understand who's in the room. Of course, we can see your names, but that doesn't really tell us so much. So we prepared a Slido question, and you'll see that there will be a link sent to you in the chat where you can click on, and then you get right away to that Slido poll. And I'm just going to ask my colleague Ariadne to post the link to the Slido question. There you go. So if you click on that link that is provided in the chat, so you're opening the chat panel, and then there in the last statement there is a link that we ask you to click on, and then we have a very easy question. We just want to know from what kind of organization you're joining us, simply to understand who's in the audience. Shouldn't be a difficult question. Please just put in from which kind of organization you're coming. We have at least 1 person from the city administration, so that's really good. I'm also seeing some other people coming in, so I give it a bit of time for you to click on the link and put in your answer. Don't forget to press submit, because otherwise your answer is not going to be counted. We have a project developer in there too. Research and academia seems to be a big group. I'm also still seeing there are other people joining us, so I want to give you the opportunity as well. We're currently looking into the question of who's in the room, who's in the session. We do that by using Slido, and you can find the link on the right-hand side of the Teams menu if you go to the chat. Click on the link, enter the code, and then you are in this question and you can answer. So there seems to be quite a majority of research and academia representatives with some city administration and project developers there, and an even share of national government, industry and financial institutions. So that's a really good mix, I think, for the session. So that is promising some very interesting conversations and questions, and I'm very much looking forward to that. We have a second short question for you, which goes a bit deeper into the subject matter of the session. Could we go to the next one? Because I would like to omit this one. So just go to the next slide or question. Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. So we have the question of how well do you know the following funding instruments? So we have H2020, we have the Connecting Europe Facility, URBACT, we have the EDRF, and now it's switching, I don't get the right order. We have Elena, and we have Jaspers. So you can choose the one that you know, and the ones that you don't know, you just don't click on. So that's the simple orientation for us. Again, this is very helpful for our speakers, so they know maybe where to focus on, where to put emphasis in their presentation, maybe highlighting a few things more than others. So it's really important that you just give us a quick snapshot of your experience with those funding instruments. So if you know them, you click on them. If you don't know them, you just leave them blank and then you submit. Seems that H2020 is predominantly known by everybody. That must be making the European Commission very proud in that regard. But also URBACT, Elena and ERDF are known by quite a number of you. Nobody knows Jaspers, so maybe that's an attention point also for our speakers. And of course also the team behind the scenes. Thank you very much for helping us in getting a feel of the people in this room. We very much appreciate that you interact with that. But now it's the time to go into our first presentation. So we're going to close Slido, and I'm going to ask Anja to turn on her camera and get control over the presentation. Anja, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. And
great, wonderful. Great, then Anja, the floor is yours. We're very much looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much and welcome everybody. So I heard you had a very intense day already, so I hope you can still follow us for this session on funding. I also give us granted because many of you are local authorities and are involved in Smart Cities project. You're all already very familiar with the Covenant of Mayors. Sorry, I'm just having a hard time. Okay, so we just were a bit behind with the slides. Sorry, just 1 second. So I work in the Covenant of Mayors, the European Secretariat. So as was mentioning, I gave for granted that a lot of you already know what is the Covenant of Mayors. If not, feel free to post it in the chat. But just as a very, very quick summary, is a 12 years old initiative. Now we are already almost going for 13, and it's a bottom-up initiative. It's local authorities that want to become want to cut their greenhouse gas emission, they want to focus on energy efficiency, they want to adapt to climate change, and now they also want to work on poverty and energy poverty. So we are now running for, as mentioned, 12 years. A lot of local authorities, we are now more than 10,000 mayors that have signed the commitment. And now we are going to look also at the next steps, which is 2030 objective, but also 2050. So a lot of cities are now working on how to become climate neutral by 2050 as one of the final deadline, but also a lot of them also before. So what do we do at the European Secretariat? We help them. We try to provide information on a variety of solutions that are available in Europe or outside. But we also try to support them, of course, in accessing European funding. So today I'll just give a brief overview of what we do and how we can help particularly local authorities, but also other type of organization, researcher, in understanding what type of funding we provide are available in the European Union, but also provide some interesting example from cities and how they are using European funding, in particular to access other type of financing option, because I think this has to be underlined. Funding as such are interesting for cities when they manage to catalyze other type of investment and private finance. So I hope, so this is kind of quite a lot of the work we have put together in the last years. It's just a very complete overview of everything that is available in the European Union when it comes to funding, financing, but also alternative financing schemes. And this overview is a bit biased, is a bit simplified, but I think it's really great when, especially for those people that just want to have the complete picture. What is available, who is available it for, which country is accessible, because we have also partners from Norway, from Switzerland, or maybe from the Balkan. And also a little bit simplification, but also a very good overview of the differences. And for example, that's why we have European Structural and Investment Funds that we will also hear from later, in particular from regional development funding. So these are the kind of funding that are available at national and regional level, and they are not managed at a centralized level. So that's what you have. And then you have instead the European funding programs. It was great to see that many of you are familiar with Horizon 2020. So of course, this is not one we should touch, but there is also a lot more available, especially for cities under the Urban Innovative Action or the LIFE program or URBACT, which is more about capacity building. And of course, how not to mention the Connecting Europe facility, that it's for energy, for the digital backbone, and for the communication infrastructure, also mobility in Europe. Then we moved for something that is also still part of funding, but it has a different scope, a different outcome. So the project development assistance. And here I'm also happy today we have Joost that is going to provide more in detail about Elena, but also just for you to know, there is also Horizon 2020 project development assistance that is funding, but the scope is really to reach investment opportunities, EEF, so the European Energy Efficiency Fund, and Jasper. So because none of you know about Jaspers, if you want to go on the website of the Covenant of Mayors, you can click on Jasper and then we are all going to know the basic of what it is. Then we move to financial institution instrument, and this is what European banks and national banks are currently doing, what kind of scheme are in place for helping particularly local authorities to push for more, for example, renewable projects, or National Capital Financing Facility is mainly related to biodiversity support and, for example, forest. How can we work more in climate adaptation thanks to maybe improving or extending the forest that we have in the city? And finally, alternative financing schemes. So this is something that is very different from European funding. I know it's something that has been discussed in the other session, but also here we have some ideas on what is possible, for example, related to on-bill financing, revolving funds, or soft loans, the guarantee. So this was quite some work for us, and we are now working, of course, in updating this as soon as the next multi-annual financial framework, so the European Union budget, is gonna be approved, hopefully soon. So, of course, it's not only the overview that is important, but the information inside. And here I just wanted to indeed just provide an overview of how we are providing information, for example, for who is the support interesting, which countries are eligible, and what is the kind of type of project that are looking at, but also a lot of example of currently running project that you can take inspiration from. So this is just the European Regional Development Fund, and also we have the project development assistance under Horizon 2020. We also had a sneak peek in Horizon Europe, so the next Horizon 2020, and I was glad to see how project development assistance for energy, but also for biodiversity project, for circular economy project is gonna be continued. This was great news for a lot of the cities that are interested in bridging the gap between funding and financing option. So other type of funding here, these 4 booklets, they took quite a lot of my work, but we are very proud of presenting them because it's really going a little bit more in detail on this overview of funding and financing option, and especially how to apply the lesson learned from the Covenant of Mayor cities. For example, we have a lot of the cities that have applied to Elena. So what do they think, what they would have done differently, how they get to involve in this, but also, for example, a lot of cities that were involved with the European Investment Bank or other type of national bank like Belfius that we have today. And also a European funding program, which is something I'm going to touch a little bit further today. So in the booklet, you can find information on how to apply for European funding programs. Again, for going in detail of this, we will probably need something like 3 weeks of online courses. So these are just sneak peek and try to understand a little bit how to start. But for example, where do you find information when you want to get started understanding the difference between all the European funding program? All of them are different. All of them have different scope, different eligibility criteria, different co-financing. So where to get started and how to get information on what is coming up. But also once a call for proposal is out, how do we get the idea? How do we define the objective, the target group, the milestones? What do we want to reach with this project? And also how do we get involved in forming the perfect partnership? For example, this is something, of course, super important. A lot of the European projects are, of course, transnational, which means you have to have a partnership which comes from all over Europe. But you also want to make sure that these are people you can work well with for at least 3, 4, 5 years. So, and of course, they have to be the best in their sector and the best in achieving what you want to do in your project. And of course, never underestimate the added value of communication, dissemination, and exploitation. Again, it's 3 completely different words, extremely important for European project. And also something I wanted to underline, we have nowadays more and more cities that are using different type of funding program to making sure that their project can reach further results and further level. And this is the example of Horizon 2020 and how they managed to combine it, for example, with structural funds or other type of investment, or for example, national funds that are put in place. So this is something that is very advisable to do. Of course, it's not an easy task. So here, just a few ideas also coming from the booklet I just presented, more focusing on European funding. For example, urban innovative action, which is something that is going to continue in the next EU budget and is very ambitious, is around 5 million euro that cities are using currently in different topic, but there is one specific for energy efficiency. And here just 3 interesting projects from Gothenburg, from Villa-de-Cans, and also from Antwerp in terms of circular economy. So here, just if you want to know what they're working on and their results, and if you want to get inspiration, this is, I think, a very good source. And here, just I wanted to present one project in specific, because I think this is really a symbol project on how mid-sized city, not only the big one, are able to catalyze European funding and then attract different type of finance, different type of investment. So this is the story of the Lemon project. This is something that for me, it's very easy to remember and has a nice name, but it comes from the provinces of Reggio Emilia and Parma, so in Italy. So they were able to use Horizon 2020 funding in starting up a scheme for retrofitting of public and private social housing in particular. And how did they, so they made an investment which was initial of 3 million, and they managed to reach around 123 retrofitted dwelling between the provinces of Reggio Emilia and Parma. So here just, and what is particularly interesting is thanks to the project, they managed to mobilize 15 million of investment. So we're reaching quite a lot of primary energy savings. But also look at the financing sources that they managed to combine and put together. We have Horizon 2020, European Regional Development Fund, regional funds for social housing, national financing, national incentives, and also they managed, of course, to get the involvement of national, local banks and large banks. So I think this is really a top project to take into consideration when you're thinking of how to use European funding. And here you will receive the slides. I'm sure you just have a little bit more examples coming from other cities across Europe. So you have, I'm sorry, I will not be able to pronounce the city from Croatia, but of course we also example from Ljubljana, Grenoble and Turin. So you will have all the link on how they've managed to use European funding, mainly on Horizon 2020, but also structural funds to really reach the next, to really exploit results of pilot project and replicate it to a further level. And then I would like to finish just to mention that we are more than happy to be invited here by the European Innovation Partnership for Smart Cities and Communities. It's not the first time we are collaborating. And of course, we hope to keep on collaborating in the future, particularly the matchmaking exercise, that the matchmaking event that are planned for the next years. we're more than happy to support it, also to involve the cities of the Covenant of Mayors. In the future, we will also work a lot more on disseminating interesting project results. So particularly if you're involved in Smart Cities project and you know, okay, now we had it, this is the solution, it has to be disseminated, come to us and we are more than happy to do that. Of course, other kind of initiative, for some of you might be already aware, there is something called the EU City Facility that is about project development assistance for small and medium-sized cities. And also we are planning to set up an online capacity building course on EU funding. And in general, we have quite a lot of initiative related to capacity building. So this is just some of our numbers. As mentioned, we are 10,000 signatories, and we hope we're going to keep on working together for 2030 and 2050. Try to make sure Europe becomes the first climate neutral continent by 2050. So that was it from my side.
Thank you, Anja, and thank you for this broad overview of the funding available, but also then giving some examples of how it could be done and what the great achievements are that you could get through funding like that. Again, I encourage you, if you have questions to what you've just heard from Anja, in relation to the overview of the funding, specific funding streams, put them in the chat. If you are more of the vocal kind of person, you can also raise your hand, and then we give the floor to you. So you can ask your question directly in person.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to apologize for mentioning EAPSCC is now the Smart Cities Marketplace. Sorry for that old name.
I think it takes a bit of time to get used to, but in a few weeks, I think we're all there. So don't worry about that. So if there are no questions right away, which is absolutely fine, because I think it's quite a number of things to digest. We just go into the next presentation, and then if you have questions later for Anja, put them in the chat. We'll pick them up later because we will have a bit of time for a panel discussion towards the end of our session. So I would like to ask Carlotta Fioretti. Carlotta, I hope you're still there, to turn on your camera, unmute yourself, and then Ariadne will give you control over your slides. And we will be able to follow your presentation. Carlotta, are you there?
Hi. Yes, I'm there.
Wonderful.
I'm just checking if I can move the slides on. No, it's not working.
Not yet working. You don't have control yet. Ariadne, could you check that Carlotta gets the control?
It's just a bit stubborn. It takes a bit of trial.
Okay. Thank you, Anja. Carlotta, do you want to try it again? Let's see if it works.
Yes, I'm trying right now, but nothing is happening. So maybe I can just say next slide in this way.
That's of course fine. Maybe try starting your presentation, and then Ariadne, if you could move the slides forward, Carlotta, that would be lovely.
Okay. Yeah. So good afternoon, everybody. Now it's going a little bit too fast. Yes, perfect. So my name is Carlotta Fioretti. I'm a scientific officer at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. For who doesn't know the Joint Research Center, basically it is the science hub of the European Commission, where we provide knowledge, analysis, also methodological support for policymaking at the EU level. And I'm really happy to be here with you today to talk about one of our work, that is the Handbook of Sustainable Urban Development Strategies. Next, please. So the background of this work that I'm going to present you today is on the cohesion policy and the European structural investment funds that Anja have just pinpointed to you. What I think that it's the most important thing is to stress within this broader framework of the cohesion policy during this programming period, 2014-2020, is that there has been a high focus on urban and territorial development. In particular, 17 billion euros of the European Regional Development Fund has been directly managed by cities to implement integrated strategies for sustainable urban development. For who is familiar with the regulation of ERDF, we are talking about Article 7 of the regulation. What this has meant that basically during this programming period, nearly 1,000 strategies of sustainable urban development has been implemented across all member states. And if you would like to have an overview of all those strategies, you can visit our website Stratboard. It is here in the slide, and I can also provide to you the link later on in the chat. It's a visual tool that allow you to see all those strategies implemented across Europe. A specific feature of this programming period has been also that of promoting a territorial delivery mechanism, a policy instrument that it is called the Integrated Territorial Investment, ITI. And many of those 1,000 strategies has been developed through this ITI that allows for more holistic strategy and to bundle together multiple sources of funds within the European structural investment funds. There are other initiatives supported by the cohesion policy during this programming period, like Urban Innovative Actions and URBACT, both of them already mentioned by Anja before. Next, please. In the future, in the upcoming programming period, this focus on the urban dimension will be stressed again. In particular, if during this programming period there were 11 investment priorities, 11 thematic objectives, in the future one, this number will be reduced to 5, and the fifth of those called policy objective, it's called Europe Closer to Citizen, is a specific objective fostering integrated strategies in urban areas. So again, there will be part of the ERDF budget. The negotiations are still ongoing, but we are talking about at least 8% of the ERDF budget that will be allocated specifically for those type of strategies. And moreover, there will be an initiative, the European Urban Initiative, that is meant to provide for more knowledge and more capacity building for cities, for all those actors that are willing to invest in their cities through these funding schemes. And JRC will be active in this European Urban Initiative. Next, please. So just to give you a few details on what are these sustainable urban development strategies. This is a quote from the ERDF regulation, and it is written that the ERDF shall support within operational programs sustainable urban development through strategies that set out integrated actions to tackle the economic, environmental, climate, demographic, and social challenges affecting urban areas. I think that the two keywords here are first strategies, so the importance of locating all the projects or the action plans within a long-term vision, a collective long-term vision for the city. And the second very important keyword is integrated actions or the integrated approach, in the sense that one minimum requirement in order to do this type of strategies is to integrate different policy objectives and to in order to achieve this integration across policy boundaries, to put together a governance system with different stakeholders and different levels of government. Next, please. These are the main policy actors that are involved in sustainable urban development strategies. So first of all, managing authorities that are the one in charge of operational program, so work a lot within the European structural funds architecture, let's say. Then, of course, local authorities, all those municipalities or those cities, urban areas that usually design and implement this type of strategies. And finally, beneficiary, the one who implement projects. As you can see in this diagram, in this slide, SUD strategy are a link between the cohesion policy architecture, the structural funds architecture on the one side, and on the other side, the local policy making, where projects are implemented. So very important to see through the diagram in order to implement successful strategies. Next, please. In order to give support to cities, but more in general to all those actors that are involved into sustainable urban development, the JRC, in collaboration with DG Regio, published the Handbook of Sustainable Urban Development Strategies. This handbook was published last January, and it's aimed at raising our knowledge on how to design and implement urban strategies under the structural funds, and in particular the European Regional Development Funds. It talks about this, the current programming period, but also the upcoming one. And one of the main targets are local authorities, municipalities, especially the ones that are less familiar with the cohesion policy and the EU funding scheme, but would like to take advantage of this type of funding scheme in the next programming period. Next, please. The handbook is structured into 6 chapters. Each one is talking about one of the 6 main principles blocks of the EU integrated approach to urban development. The first one is the strategic dimension. As I already said before, it is really important that there is it's a basic prerequisite that there is a strategy in order to develop sustainable urban development. And then there are several principles like the territorial focus, governance, cross-sectoral integration, funding and finance, monitoring. So I cannot go into the detail of each one of these building blocks, but I will explain a little bit to you the funding and finance one that is also the theme of today's webinar. Next, please. Each one of the building blocks are tackled in a way that is represented in this diagram. Basically, in the handbook, there is not an overall explanation of all the possible things related to each building block, but there is a focus on the most critical and recurrent issues and challenges that policymakers, administrators, practitioners may incur on while they designing or implementing strategies of urban development. And in order to explain how to tackle those challenges, we provide 2 main things. On one side, resources that are available online, but also on the other side, examples, good practice of cities that already tackle those challenges and explain how they did. At the end, for each issue at stake, we provide also for recommendation. Next, please. So going into detail of the funding and finance building block, this is also a way in order to explain to you how the handbook works. So first of all, in the handbook, we provide an explanation of what is this principle, what is meant by this building block, in this case, funding and finance. And then we focus, as I said before, on the main challenges. In particular, for funding and finance, we think that one of the most important things is to bundle together multiple sources. This is necessary, but it is also challenging. In fact, integrating the funds and financial instrument within the same strategy can be beneficial for several reasons. I would mention just the two of them. The first one is that through a mix of funds is easier to tackle in a holistic and comprehensive way the complexity of urban issues and address the interrelated social, economic, and environmental issues through a strategic and integrated approach. And then the second quite obvious added value is that it is possible to mobilize a wider range of actors and resources. Next, please. When I say bundle together different sources of funding and finance, what I mean, first of all, put together different European structural investment funds. In order to do sustainable urban development strategies, the main fund is the ERDF, the European Regional and Development Fund. But there are other funds that can be used, as for example, ESF, the Social Fund, or CF, the Cohesion Fund. Moreover, it is possible to mix these structural funds together with domestic sources of funds, but also involving private investors and the third sector. Finally, the third point is that it's possible to use financial instruments and financial products. Next, please. So to conclude my presentation, I will provide you two examples that are also included in the handbook. The first example is that of Poland, a country, a member state that was able through their strategies to combine different funds from the European structural funds. In particular, through the policy instrument called Integrated Territorial Investment, ITI, in Poland there were implemented 24 strategies. You can see in this map the location of all those strategies. And it was used a very big amount of structural funds contribution, the biggest of any other member state. That combined together ERDF with the European Social Fund, Cohesion Fund, and also other sources of national and domestic funds. These allow Poland to develop strategies that are very holistic with a lot of implementation priority per strategy. Next, please. The final example is that of Athens. Also, Athens was able to do quite a big strategy with a wide range of diverse and small-scale projects. And it was able to do that because they combine, again, different sources of fund, structural fund, but also European Investment Bank loan, national, municipal, and private funds through the Athens 2020 investment program. And under this program, there is also a sustainable urban development strategy. These allow Athens to develop a holistic strategy with many kinds of projects. The project category were, for example, urban revitalization, energy upgrades, economy and tourism, social solidarity, and also IT and services. So my final slide, please. This was a let's say, on the content on the handbook, I invite you to visit our website. Here you can find the link, but I will put it also on the chat where you can download the report and also dive into the different chapters of the handbook. Moreover, during this month of November, we are organizing together with the Urban Development Network a series of webinars, each one devoted on one of the chapters of the handbook. And I invite you to register to the webinar, and the next one will be the 9th of November. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Carlotta, for the snapshot of the handbook. Also, of course, what's possible within a short presentation. It seems to be a really big wealth of information to dive into deeper and see information. If there are any questions, do let us know. So put them in the chat or raise your hand. Again, you have a chance now to ask your questions, but also later there will be discussion time with our panelists. So if you want to share your questions, then that's of course also fine. But you can just post them whenever you feel like it. Thank you, Carlotta, for the moment. And I would like to invite our third and last speaker, which is Joost Declerck. And Joost will tell us more about one of the funding opportunities or funding tools that also Anja already highlighted in her overview, which is Elena, and the experience with that in Belgium. Joost, could you turn on your camera and turn on your sound?
You see me? You hear me and you see me?
I certainly hear you, and now I also see you. Yeah, that works perfectly.
Thank you very much. But you can keep control of the slides, huh?
Indeed, Joost will, Ariadne, just keep the control. That's absolutely fine. Joost, the floor is yours for your presentation.
Thank you very much, and thanks a lot for the lot of information about funding programs. You know, with the Belfius Bank, we had in the last 6-7 years several with the European Investment Bank, and I'm so thankful to them that they gave us opportunities and occasions to work on everything what was energy efficiency. And then in this 10-15 minutes, I would like to tell you a little more about our experience that we had with the European Investment Bank for the Elena grant that we got in the beginning of this year. And I want to give you some more information, what is Elena and how we are using it. You can go to the next slide, please. So what will I tell you? I will tell you a little bit, a few words about who we are and what we are doing in the green transition. I will tell you, of course, what is Elena, who can be the beneficiary of it, what is the scope, what can be the scope of Elena, which kind of eligible costs Elena is funding. Something more about the application process, and then also some words about how we are using the Elena program in our bank. Okay, but maybe first a few words about Belfius Bank. Next slide, thank you. Who is Belfius Bank? For them who don't know us, we are one of the 4 major Belgian banks. We are 100% state-owned bank since 2011. We are an all-around bank insurer. And maybe what's typical for Belfius Bank is that we are the market leader in the public sector and also in the social sector. So I can tell you we had a very successful smart cities program together with the EIB. And we were able to generate for more than 1.4 billion euro of innovative smart city projects. We were very proud of that, and that's thanks to the fact that we are really a market leader in local communities in Belgium. So the bank is, as you see, in good shape. We have very good ratios. And what we see in the last years is that as we are a major bank, as we are a state-owned bank, we get more and more pressure also to take our social responsibility, to make a societal role in and also in the energy transition. And so our bank has given some commitments about corporate sustainable responsibility. You see them, some of it. So we really think that it's also the role of a bank to be a little bit the motor, or at least that we have a support role in the energy transition. And that's why we have asked also for the Elena application. Next slide. We had the very successful Smart Cities program, but we are also since 4 years in Belgium the pilot bank for the private for energy efficiency program that we are doing together with the European Investment Bank. This program is rather successful, and it aims to finance energy efficiency projects, also renewable energy projects in buildings. And what's very interesting is that we, on the one hand, we get cheap funding from the European Investment Bank, cheap funding that we transfer to our customers, but we get from the European Investment Bank also portfolio guarantee. And they are guaranteeing us 80% of expected losses that we could get on a portfolio of energy efficiency projects that we are financing. And that gives us the possibility to be more flexible in loan application for our clients for energy efficiency projects. It is very successful, but this project, as the term says itself, it is private finance for energy efficiency. So this project, the scope of this project is towards companies or toward third investors that are investing in for public clients, but it's not directed directly to public clients. That's why we have asked for a second support line, the Elena support line. You can go to next slide. A few words about Elena. Yeah? What is Elena? There you see the abbreviation, the European Local Energy Assistance. It is existing since 2009, and it is a mandate that the European Investment Bank got from the European Commission. So the European Investment Bank is getting funds from the European Commission, and they are treating these funds as efficient as possible. The Elena is a grant, so it's a subsidy. It's not really funding for loans. It's a subsidy for the preparation of investment programs. So maybe important here that it's only for the preparation and not for the implementation of an investment program. You see that the program has been rather successful in the last 11 years. So more than 181 million euro of grants has been awarded, and it has a very good leverage factor on the investments. More than 6.6 billion euro of energy efficiency investments has been operated. Next slide. Some general rules about Elena. If you want to go for an application of Elena, you need really to have a minimum investment in view in projects of 30 million euro. You need to realize or to support or to help to realize these investments in a 3-year implementation period. It is a subsidy, and what is this subsidy is covering? It is covering preparation costs for energy efficiency projects. 90% you see of the project development support, of costs related to the project development support, can be subsidized by Elena. You see there on the fourth line, the required level of maturity. That's a very important one. Before you ask for an Elena, the EIB really wants that you know very well what you will do, which investments you are focusing on, how you will do it, what support you need, and how you will operate all this. A very important general rule of Elena is that it is not, it's not a free grant. The EIB is giving you this grant. They're asking to you that for each euro that you get, that at least 20 times you can prove that at the end of the project, energy efficiency, sustainable energy projects are realized. So for 20 times the amount of the subsidy that you have got. And if you cannot prove that, and it's a really intensive process of audits and so on to prove that, if you cannot prove that, then the EIB could ask you back partly of the whole grant. So it's really not a free lunch. You really need to be able to have the capacity, and not only to have the capacity, but also to realize what you have promised to the European Investment Bank. You see also that in Elena, the institution that asks for the Elena grant doesn't have to be the investing institution. For instance, Belfius Bank will not himself do the investments, but with the Elena grant, we will help our public and social profits clients to do investment in energy efficiency. Okay, next slide. Who can benefit from Elena? It can be the public sector. I have understood that most of the people here are from the public sector. But since, I think since 2 years, it's also possible that the private sector makes an application for Elena. For instance, Belfius Bank, even if we are a state-owned bank, we are a commercial bank and we are considered as a private sector player. So it was able for us to apply for an Elena grant, even if we are not part of the public sector. Okay. Next slide. What can be the scope of Elena? Yeah, you see there, I spoke a few times about that, everything what is sustainable energy. But it's very clear, as I said in the beginning, the aim of Elena is to subsidize project development of concrete projects. So here in this chapter, Elena is subsidizing everything what can be sustainable energy. You see public lighting, district heating, some renewable energy, but most of all is important everything what is energy efficiency retrofit in public buildings. Okay. Elena is not only doing that. Elena could the scope of Elena projects could also be, in the next slide you will see that. Elena could also subsidize projects in the urban transport and mobility sector. It has always, you will see in the text, it has always a link with energy, but it's not only energy efficiency in buildings, it could also be urban transport and mobility projects. And last but not least, and that you see in the next slide, Elena could also support energy efficiency projects for residential buildings. So everything what is the public sector energy efficiency in the residential sector, and also everything what is transport and mobility in sector investment programs could be subsidized. Okay, that's for the scope of Elena. Next slide. Which kind of costs are subsidized by the grant? All kind of costs for internal staff that are helping our clients to realize the preparation of energy efficiency projects. So 90% of the salary costs can be subsidized by the European Investment Bank. It shouldn't be all internal staff. Elena can also subsidize 90% of the cost of external experts. I give an example. For instance, for different projects, we ask to an external expert to make an energy audit of some projects of our clients. 90% of these costs are eligible under Elena. And you see also judicial costs, preparing of tendering procedures, and so on are also eligible. So it's a very good help. You can go to the next slide. It's a very good help because 90% of the really preparations costs are covered by the Elena grant. Here you have in a glance the application process. The application process, is I give it here in a glance, but I can tell you that Belfius, it took us more than 2 years to come from the first contact, as you see, the Elena, to the start of the project development services. So it's a long process, and you really need to prepare very well what you will do, how you will do it. You also have to give in detail your plans and also what is the energy efficiency effects on your plans. I speak about energy savings of CO2 savings and so on. So, but I can tell you also that the people of the EIB are very helpful and are supporting everybody that asks for an application. So you are not alone. They have a lot of experience. They are supporting you, and they go this process together with you, but it can take a long time. Okay, next slide. Here on this slide, you see it's a very recent slide on the different beneficiaries of Elena projects in Europe. And you see, for instance, that in Belgium, we have already 6 beneficiaries of Elena projects. And that's not so easy because we are in a small country with 6 beneficiaries, and most of the beneficiaries have the same scope. We are all looking for energy efficiency projects for public entities. So that has as the consequence that maybe from time to time we are become competitors of each other. But you see that in other European countries there are much less, and there's still a lot of possibility for other institutions in other European countries. So, but it is a successful product, and I heard also that there are a lot of funds that has been left, so they are waiting. The EIB is really waiting for your applications and for your projects. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, I give you in a nutshell a little bit what we are doing with Elena. So we are using our Elena grant only to help develop projects for public and social profit customers, so not for the residential sector. We are using it only for energy efficiency in existing buildings, photovoltaic projects, district heating and public lighting. so not for mobility or transport reasons. You see that we got a really very interesting subsidy of the European Investment Bank. And that means also when we have got 3.2 million euro of subsidy, that means that we have a contractual leverage factor of 20. That means that at the end of the project, we need to prove that at least for 65 million euro, we have helped our clients in energy efficiency projects or PV projects and so on. We think that we will do better, so we have taken the engagement to the European Investment Bank that at the end of the project we will try to do for support our clients for 100 million euro of total project costs. You also see that our program is a little bit longer than the 3 years, and that the only reason there is that most of the Elena projects have got a prolongation following the COVID crisis of 6 months. What are we doing in concrete? We are really giving our clients support in the realization of retrofit of buildings. We are helping there with project management. We are helping there subsidizing also energy audits. We are developing really a good program of third investor to put photovoltaic systems on their roofs together with partners. But we are really also helping our customers with very different support to realize this kind of projects. So maybe to conclude, these projects, why did we ask for this grant? Some people say, yeah, but you are a bank, you are a rich bank. Why are you asking for this support? And then I say, look, we are working in a non-mature market. All the initiatives that we are speaking about here, that means that the market is not mature. Otherwise, this funding and initiative shouldn't be there. So we are working in a non-mature market. And when you are asking to a commercial bank to invest in a program that is not mature, then it becomes difficult. I got several times to my management, I said, give me some resources because we can do much more. And then the management says, yeah, but are you really sure that you can construct a profitable business from here in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? I said, I think I can, but they asked to me, are you really sure? And so they were doubting to invest really supporting that. And then thanks to this Elena program, we can go a step further and we can develop with the help of this grant a really good offer to our clients and to make also the market more mature. Maybe one last slide.
I would really love to ask you, Joost, to come to an end because we really need to.
Yeah, this is the last slide too. I told you it's a long application process, so you really need to focus on that and to put the necessary resources. If you want to go for an Elena application, you need to have the capacity to generate. Otherwise, you have the risk that you have to give back the grant. Of course, it's European money. That means there's a lot of reporting to do. You have to justify every euro that you spend. It has to be auditable also. But on the other hand, it's really a unique opportunity to develop sustainable activity in a non-mature market. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joost. Thank you for that presentation on your experience in the application for Elena, its benefits, and of course also maybe some of the challenges that come up there. I would love to ask our other two panelists, Carlotta and Anja, to turn on their cameras as well. Joost, please keep yours tuned in there as well in terms of camera, so just that we can see the three of you plus myself. For all the participants that are still joining us at this point, if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we'll pick them up. If you don't have any, I do have a few, so that's absolutely fine. But again, if you want to have more information, if you want to have a link, if you want to have a specific answer to a very specific question, this is your moment to ask those. Just put them in the chat and we'll get to you the answers. Maybe more so to Anja and Carlotta, but Joost, of course, if you have a response to that as well. In both of your presentations, I heard a lot about the combination of funds. But I think that's probably more easy said than done. So I'm wondering, I mean, it seems to me that accessing one fund is already complicated, and accessing a combination of them seems like, I don't know, the Mount Everest of the funding world. But maybe I see this wrongly. What kind of tips or advice or approach would you recommend to people looking at that might be an important aspect? Anja, do you want to go first, maybe?
Yeah, so I've seen cities developing funding strategy, which of course have to be going hand in hand with the urban development strategy. And once you have a clear objective, I want to become climate neutral, I want to have all my citizens get out of poverty, and then it's relatively easier. You have your city strategy, and then you can develop a funding strategy. And then most of the projects you get involved into have to be dedicated to reaching those objectives. Also, I know that a lot of the bigger cities, they are developing funding department, so expert on funding, so they don't have to rely on the Covenant of Mayors overview, but they are the one really making sure that they know all the difference and how you can combine them legally, because indeed you don't have to overlap in terms of double funding.
Another challenge that, of course, you need to prove the matching of those. Carlotta, was there, you pointed that out, that also came up in the handbook, that, for example, some of the successful cities like Athens, if I remember correctly, they relied on a combination of funding. Is that sort of a success factor that you see also in the handbook, or is this combination of funds a nice add-on?
Well, I guess it depends a lot on what do you want to fund. In the case of Athens, it was a very large strategy with a lot of small projects. So it was better to have multiple sources of fund, because the strategy was touching upon very different objectives. But it's not, I mean, there are also very successful examples that are dealing with just one source of fund. I would just would like to mention the fact that I think that a key element that allows you to be able to mix together different sources, especially coming on the one side from the EU, but on the other side also domestic funding scheme, it's a stronger governance system, in the sense that what we notice is that, for example, if there was a strong urban policy in place already at national level, for example, or at regional level, then for cities was easier in order to work within this governance framework and find the different funding sources.
Yes, thank you. And another thing that came up a couple of times is the importance of partnerships in the endeavor of applying for funding, but of course also implementing the projects in the end. I'm wondering if there's a particular type of partnership or a particular nature that the partnership should have. I think Anja sort of alluded you should partner up with people that you want to work with the next 3 to 4, 5 years. Of course, that's an important point. But is it about complementarity? Is it about having the same spirit? Did you see any successful measures or successful parameters there?
Are you asking to myself?
Yes, if you want to start, sure.
In case of urban development strategies, it depends a lot on the type of partnership are you talking about. In the sense that there can be public partnership among, for example, different municipalities that work together in order to reach their objectives. And then in this case, I would say that an important thing is to have also common policy agenda, common objective, these type of things. While when you are talking about partnership between different type of stakeholders, so private stakeholders, but also NGOs and third sector partners, in the case always of urban development, the municipality who is the lead partner has a strong role to play in, and it's very important that they are able to identify or at the beginning of their strategy process all the relevant stakeholders that they will want to work with, and so start very early. Let's say even before, to design the strategy itself, to build an environment of trust in order to involve the various stakeholders.
Thank you. And Anja, you wanted to contribute as well? If so, could I ask you to do that shortly?
Lotte already mentioned a very important component, the trust. Above all, I will check particularly for Horizon 2020 project or international project, you have to go for the best in certain very nitty-gritty area of work. You want to collaborate with some companies or universities that already work in that field for a long time, even if sometimes means creating new partnership, or you want to work with those that you are very much familiar with and you can collaborate well for some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we all know that partnership or consortia building is quite a challenging and time demanding task. I would like to ask Ariadne to pose our last and final poll question that we have towards our participants. So there is maybe posing the link again. Otherwise, there is, of course, the link in the chat or way further up, but you might need to scroll quite a bit. So Ariadne, if you could just post the link again into the chat so people can access the Slido poll, because we do have one final question, because you've heard quite a lot of information that was shared by our 3 speakers. And we want to know from you, as soon as we get a chance, what you would. There are a couple of options that we would like to run you through, and we want to know which option of those fit best to you. You now have the Slido's link in your chat, so you can just click on it, and then we'll just invite you to answer the question. So again, after listening to the presentations and the panel discussion, of course, please choose the option that fits best to you. And I feel very confident about my funding proposal and will submit an application. I have no funding proposal in mind, but I would consider one in the future using the mechanisms presented today. I think my funding proposal is advanced but would benefit from an expert review, or my funding proposal is still an early stage and I will review the resources presented today. So this gives us again an idea of where you stand in terms of possible funding proposals on your own, or the future that you have in mind on that. And I see that a majority of the people that responded to that poll, I've currently no funding proposal in mind, but of course, if there's something coming up in the future, they know now what to look into, thanks to our great speakers of today. And the same is, of course, for the other people that answered that it's an early stage, and today's resources could really help them. So I think, speakers, this is a very great compliment to you at this stage, because I think you've inspired some of the participants, or most of the participants today, to look further into the resources that you've provided. They now know where to look, what to look for, if they ever get into the situations of applying for funding. So I want to thank you, Anja, Carlotta, and Joost, for your lovely presentations and for sharing your insights. Again, participants, you now know those people. Of course, there's also a chance to contact them tomorrow in the conference if you want, or later. So please use that opportunity. And then I want to now invite you to leave this Teams room and join us in the plenary live stream on the platform of the conference. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.